Welcome everyone back to my channel. If you're joining me for the first time, my name is Monica, and in this video I'm going to go through the tarot decks that I did acquire last year in 2022. If you watched my previous video, I did a recording of all the tarot decks that I let go last year, and it came to quite a few. It came to 19 tarot decks. I think there were a couple of Lenormand and one Oracle in there as well. But it was quite a high number of decks that I decided to remove from my collection because I wasn't using, or they were doubles, or they just never really captivated me. And so following on from that, I thought, well, how many decks did I actually buy last year? If you were to ask me that question before I went through this exercise, I would have said maybe 6 or 7. And then I went through my records and found out that I had bought no less than 12 decks. So yeah, I let go of 19, but I bought 12, so my collection is down by 7. Now I'm not a minimalist. I don't aspire to be a minimalist with my tarot decks. I think I have around about 100, although you never know. Maybe I should go through that exercise and find out I have quite a few more than 100. But the bottom line is I have quite a few, and I don't wish to only have a dozen. I prefer variety. I need variety. I like all the different types of art and the types of decks and so on and so forth. But I don't want to have stagnant energy. Okay, so that was my reason behind the declutter. And then I went through and found the 12 decks that I purchased last year, and I thought I'd go through those as quickly as I can. So first up, these are in no particular order, so they're not in the order that I purchased them, and they're not in the order of preference. It's just how I've aligned them on my desk here. First up is the Sonia Tarot. So I purchased this secondhand because it was quite expensive, and I was looking at getting it online from the creator, but the cost of shipping was quite prohibitive. So I purchased the deck secondhand. It was still a fair bit of money, a fair bit of coin. To me, it's got a bit of an energy of stillness and contemplation that I was looking for in a deck. I really like the artist's I guess his comments about how he created this deck and where this tarot deck came from. But overall, I just like the energy. I love the vibe of it. Some of you who've watched my previous videos on me being in a death year, I feel that this tarot deck suits the energy of the death card really, really well. And I will be working with this tarot deck for the rest of this year. This is a tarot deck that I am hoping to really get to know a bit more in depth and in detail. So that's the Sonia Tarot by Nicholas Bruno. I do have one regret about this tarot deck, and it's a big regret, and that is that I didn't purchase the book. But it wasn't available. You see, when you buy things secondhand, you sort of get what you get. And unfortunately, the lady selling it did not have the book for sale. Otherwise, I certainly would have bought it. Now, I don't regret not having the book because I feel that you need it to work with this tarot deck. Not at all. It follows the Rider-Waite-Smith tradition. And I think that if you're familiar with that tradition, you don't need a book. You don't need the artist's book in that sense, but I need the artist's book because I really want to find out what he's got to say about his creative process and how these images came to be, not just in the actual physical construction, which I think would be fascinating, but also in the way that, you know, the images have sort of come up. I'm fascinated about how people create things, you know, how they sort of percolate through in their brain, in their consciousness, and how they, how they bring those ideas to life as well. So that was number one. Sorry, I've got to have my cup of tea when I do this. It's pathological almost. I need a cup of tea. The second one is the Flora Tarot. Let me see if I've got this the right way. I'm not sure, but this is the box for the Flora Tarot. I bought this tarot deck because, number one, I love decks that are botanical in nature. When I saw this tarot deck online, I loved the fact that it was really well thought through in the way that it was designed. And you can see here, even the box inside is just beautiful. Like, the whole deck is a work of art, and it is black and white, but in no way does that detract from its aesthetic appeal. If anything, I feel like it brings or gives it a really beautiful touch. You can see here some of the cards. I think having a deck creator who is a designer professionally shows. It shows in the final quality of the deck, the way that it is made, its layout, the cardstock. This has a linen cardstock. Yeah, I really appreciate this tarot deck. So this is a deck that I don't work with often, but when I do, I enjoy it immensely. You know, so on those rare occasions when I do pull it out, I absolutely adore working with it, and it brings in that just a beautiful energy. So that's La Flora Tarot. The next tarot deck is the Unfolding Path. Yes, I did back this off Kickstarter, and yeah, I don't think this deck needs much commentary from me. It is an incredible tarot deck in the way that these cards are drawn, and the way that they are so vibrant. The court cards in particular, I love the court cards here, but all the characters in each and every card, you know, their stance often portrays and embodies the strength about them, or this, what I like to call substance. You know, these people have substance. They've lived a life and they embody so much energy. So this is now one of the decks that I like to read with fairly regularly, because it follows the Rider-Waite-Smith. It's easy to interpret. The cardstock is beautiful. It shuffles absolutely beautifully, and the images are gorgeous. So it's really nice to work with. Next, I have Tarot of a Moon Garden. Yeah, this has been around for a while, quite a long while. And it is a publication by US Games. It's been around since 1994, and then reprinted in 2010. It was created by Karen Marie, I can't say this, Swikart. Sorry, I'm terrible with names. And it is a mass market publication, and the reason I bought this deck is because I'm a huge fan of sort of, first of all, hand illustrated and hand painted decks, but I'm also a huge fan of bringing that energy of childhood into a reading sometimes. It's not just the innocence, it's the joy for life, it's the wonder and the magic of nature, which for me was such a crucial part of my childhood. Even though I spent so much time in a communist apartment block in Bucharest, but at every opportunity that I had, I was out and about and exploring those little pockets and patches of nature in the surrounding parks and in our own inner yard. So yeah, I have been seeing this around for a while, and you know what, in the end, early on in 2022, I decided to just go ahead and get it, because I knew I'd enjoy working with it, and I certainly do. It's Rider-Waite based, and yeah, it's a joy to work with. It's really cute, and I like these particular types of decks. The next deck I have that I purchased was the Dane Darcy Mermaid Tarot. This was a surprise. I have a couple of surprises in here, And it was a surprise because I thought I would never purchase this particular deck. When it first came out, it's been around for quite some time, quite a few years. And yeah, it first came out and I really can't say I appreciated the artwork. I'm more of a fan of well-executed classic drawings, if that makes sense. And the artwork is, well, let me show you, if you don't know this tarot deck. It's a little bit rough, it's a little bit sort of like done, I think it's described as being done in that sort of graffiti style. And yeah, it wasn't my sort of vibe initially. And then I think I must have seen someone work with it or do a video on it or something, and I can't remember who it was. But I went, I think I might like that actually. And off I went and I bought this and I just fell in love with it. So it's a surprise to me because, as I said, I'm not a fan usually of this type of artwork, but there you go, there's an exception to every single rule. And I think this is certainly one of those cases where it works really well. I've done many readings with this deck and it's worked brilliantly. The cardstock is nice and thick and I really appreciate it as well, but it's not got that plastic laminate that I really dislike. And one thing I will say is I bought this from a reputable Australian seller, like someone with a legit website. And what surprised me, apart from the artwork that I do like, is that it has a QR code on the back. See that there? Now, QR codes on the back of decks is a huge warning sign usually that they are counterfeit or fake, but that's not the case with the Dame Darcy Tarot. And I think possibly her Alice Tarot. She's got an Alice Tarot as well, which I don't have. So yeah, I just wanted to say that. Next up, Tarot of Gemstones and Crystals. This was a bit of a mistake on my part. So I have the initial version or publication of this tarot deck, which in my opinion is the better one. So there's two versions. This is the later release. They're both from AGM. And I thought, I bought the second hand, and I thought when I purchased it, I thought I was buying the original. I'm not sure why I thought that. I obviously didn't do my research, didn't check the photo. I wasn't aware that there was a later version, so I went ahead and I bought it because it was a really good price. But the reason for that is because it is the later version, which is not out of print. I think you can still get this. And the reason I like the first version is that it doesn't have these black borders, and the card, it doesn't have this big border around, and there is no black around them. So I feel like they do a better job in highlighting the quality of the crystals that they're trying to show, because I do think that the photography is excellent in this tarot deck. I don't have an issue with the photography at all. I think that the crystals that they have chosen and how they have married them with the tarot meaning is brilliant. It's really well done. I really love the fact that it's sort of simple and not too cluttered in the crystals that they're trying to present, or that they are presenting. But I'm just not a fan of these black borders, so I know straight away that this is one deck that I will be letting go of this year, because I find myself gravitating to the original or the first version of this deck, and that's the one that I work with. I'm not a huge fan of crystal decks. This is an exception to that. I only have, I think, 2 decks on crystals. I'm just not really into that very much. But yeah, I bought the second hand again, and you know, it's not a bad tarot deck. I just prefer the very first version of it. So that's Tarot of Gemstones and Crystals from AGM. Next up we have the Green Witch Tarot. So another deck that has been around for quite some time. and it comes in a fairly big box. Very substantial. It comes with a book as well, a really good book, an excellent book for the deck itself. Now, I wasn't going to buy this deck because I was worried that the artwork might be a bit too cutesy for me, but there's always that but, isn't it? I'm not going to buy this, but the story of every tarot deck I buy. I saw, I think it was Dawn Michelle working with it, and I really appreciated the fact that it had no borders. I don't usually mind either way, whether a tarot deck has borders or not, but I like that for this deck, and I like the cards being smaller cards, so it meant that I wouldn't have to worry about shuffling them. And of course I loved the concept of the green witch. That's something that's very dear to my heart, working with the energies of our natural world, working with the plants in nature and creating magic with that, and harvesting plants for support, be that medicinally or otherwise. And I find that this deck really captures that vibe really well. It captures the essence of being a green witch. The next couple of decks are two oracles. They are Australian oracles. They are the Dreamtime reading cards by Laura Bowen, and also her saltwater reading cards. So these are quite big, and apologies about the glare. I saw Katie Flowers mentioning these decks for quite some time and how much she liked them, and I wasn't going to buy them, and then, you know, as time went by, I felt myself really needing some sort of Australian themed decks that talked about Australia and Australian art and concepts and culture. So these images are from the Dreamtime reading cards. The other reason I wasn't going to buy them is that they are quite big. They're very, very large. But ultimately, my yearning for a tarot deck that is rooted in Australian culture and energy, or basically that overcame, you know, the size of the cards, and even the fact that they are very, you know, they've got that heavy laminate coating. You see that? See how it shines? It's, yeah, I really do not appreciate this amount of plastic on my cards for so many reasons. But with all of that being said, I love working with these cards. I work with them one at a time. There is a lot to take on. They do come with a little booklet that gives the artist's interpretation and her justification behind how she has drawn the cards. And the same with the saltwater cards. They are just a beautiful energy of the Australian coastline, the Great Barrier Reef, for which Australia is just so well known for overseas. But I live on the Queensland coast, and wherever you go, the beach is right there, and it's stunning. It is beautiful. It is pristine in most places, not all, but in most places the beaches are a dream to be around. Of course, there's just about every single thing on the planet trying to kill you. So you can't just jump in the water willy-nilly like you can in other parts of the world. But nonetheless, you can still enjoy it and make the most of it. So those are two oracles that I obtained. I also purchased a Lenormand deck, Simply Lenormand. I wonder if that's showing up. This is a creation by a lady from India by the name of Zenobia Nabil Edulkaka, and she created this really beautiful Lenormand deck. I am very heavily into Lenormand at the moment. I have been since the pandemic hit in early 2020. That's when I really started to get into it. Just by coincidence, and I like this Lenormand. If you're into Lenormand, what I like about it is that it's as simple. It's not cluttered. It's very calm. It's really fitting the name Zen Lenormand, because it is a very, very calm deck to work with, and it brings an energy of Zen. It's true to its name. So really enjoy this. Next up, I have the Victorian Romantic. I believe this is now the 4th edition. I get that there has been some criticism leveled at the creators for making sort of highly priced tarot decks. They are highly priced in my opinion now, but they are top quality tarot decks in my opinion. That might not have been the case when they first started out. I've seen some people comment that their earlier editions aren't that great, but right now, by the 4th iteration of the Victorian Romantic, the cards are just absolutely stunning, and I commend them on the cardstock as well. I did a video comparison with between the 2nd and the 4th edition, and I think I remember talking about the cardstock for this deck as being super sexy. You know, it's got just a beautiful feel to it. So yes, I bought this because it's a great reading deck. I have worked with this tarot deck as a client reading deck. I've taken them to festivals back when I had the 2nd edition, and I still have that, but it got a bit damaged, not much, and that was one of the reasons I decided to go ahead and purchase the 4th edition. So I only have the 2nd and the 4th, and I think that's enough. And finally, the other surprise from last year, please don't judge me, I bought a cheap mass market $10 deck. This is the Daily Tarot. I was at Kmart one day. As life goes, sometimes you just find yourself going to those places begrudgingly and with much anxiety. I don't enjoy going into big department stores. And I was there for a completely different reason, and I saw this and I ammed and ahed, and I was like, no, I just really want to see what it's like. I had no idea. I didn't have time to Google it online. So initially I was disappointed that these are cards that have a a message at the top. They have a bit of a like a daily affirmation sort of a thing going on with them, but they're actually really well made. I found myself nodding in agreement as to the messages and the correlation to the card meaning. The deck has the same stylistic graphic design, and yes, you can tell it's a cheap one. There's not a whole lot of detail in it, but again, it's been a surprise working with this tarot deck, because the guidance affirmations or the messages for each card are really good. They work really, really well in the context of the card meaning, and they are very supportive. And now and then you do want something that it gives you a bit of a support, a bit of an uplift. Okay, so for example, the Four of Wands I have so many reasons to celebrate and be thankful. The Five of Swords, which is a tricky one, is no matter what is happening around me, I'm guided by my inner truth. I think that's a really nice way of interpreting the Five of Swords, or providing a guidance as to how to, work with that card. I drew the Queen of Swords one day when I was doing a tarot reading for a client that was a difficult reading, or it just wasn't the easiest of readings. And the Queen of Swords message is, I speak my truth with confidence and get my point across clearly, and I really needed that. So yeah, the Daily Tarot, I don't think it even has, no, there is no actual artist with these decks. It's published by Heron. Not having an artist is something that irks me greatly, and it's a topic for another discussion at some point. But that's it. These are my 12 tarot decks from 2022, and now that we're in 2023, I will be continuing my declutter and I have to be really mindful of what I add, what I bring in, because it's easy to bring stuff in, but it's a lot harder to let go of it and to pass it on. So yeah, I will wrap it up now. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for supporting my channel. Until next time, take care.